Welcome. Coral Reef Aquarium School, Basic. Today is our 7th episode and we will be talking about temperature and temperature control. Now, starting to talk about temperature, I think what is most important is temperature stability. I highly recommend it. If you're unable to keep stable temperature, you will stress your corals, and we try to avoid that. We try to keep them at as little stress as possible. What level should you keep? I think a common average is 25 degrees on your reef tank, which translates to 77 degrees Fahrenheit. Now, there is some variability to that one, and on the picture to the right here, I am indicating some common levels and where it starts to hurt for the sensitive inhabitants of your coral reef. Okay, so typically the indoor temperature, commonly it's around 21 degrees. Of course, I understand there's some variability to that, but we're working with that as a thesis. So to be able to maintain your reef aquarium at 25 degrees, it is common to use a heater. Sometimes pumps light, creating so much heat that they are able to keep the reef at 25 degrees or higher without the heater, but it still makes sense to use a heater as an added precaution for those super cold winter nights, so you avoid stressing your corals. Now, how do you size the heater? I think here you follow the manufacturer's recommendation. I think that is sufficient. Typically states on the package what type of volumes this heater can sustain. Final word about the heaters is for coral reefs or saltwater aquariums, I think it was common to use redundancy on the heaters because historically they were prone to fail, and so creating redundancy, instead of relying on one big heater for a complete tank, you rely on 2 or 3 smaller ones, and by that you reduce the consequence. If heating stops from one of the heater, you can fall back on 2, which are probably able to keep the aquarium warm. Or the consequence, if the thermostat jams and gives full power, then a big heater can overheat your tank. But if you're relying on 3 smaller ones, if one jams, it will not be sufficient to overheat the aquarium. Okay, it's not just about keeping the temperature up, but it's also to keep the temperature from going too high. So you need to be aware of what you should do if you start overheating in the summer. Now, to keep your aquarium cool, there are 2 main ways to do it. And starting with the first one, it is to use evaporative cooling. So as fresh water is evaporating from your tank, it is actually reducing the temperature of the tank. And if your tank is running hot in the summer, what is easiest and most powerful is actually to boost the evaporative cooling. How do you boost evaporative cooling? You place fans that blows on the surface of the aquarium. That is very effective to boost evaporative cooling. And second to that, you also place the stream pumps to agitate the surface. You direct them on the surface, so have a good exchange and also good water movement over the surface. If you haven't tried it, that's very surprisingly powerful. And of course, using evaporative cooling, it's also very important that you replenish with fresh water, because you're evaporating fresh water at a quite high rate. And secondly, it's also very important that you are running without a lid or a cover glass. You need the surface needs to go up into open air. Okay, if evaporative cooling is not enough, then the last resort is to go to active cooling. And active cooling works with the same principle as an air conditioning unit, but instead of taking in hot air and cooling it, you take in warm salt water, warm marine water into the active cooler, and it leaves colder. Same process, but instead of air, it's using the seawater. Okay. Second to flow. temperature is very important. And on the topic of redundancy, I recommend that you use a redundant thermometer to secure the water temperature. And it's a little bit boring to keep looking at this thermometer, which is reading constantly 25 degrees. So personally, to keep the motivation, I am waiting for failure. And failure could be that the heater fails, or a personal failure, that I have switched off the heater when I'm doing the water change, and then I forgot to put it back in, or something similar. And that is, for me, one way to keep the motivation, as it is quite boring to check the temperature. Okay, that's it about temperature. In our next episode, we will be talking about light. And now, as we close this session about temperature, we will do as we usually do. We will move into the project part of the course, and I hope you stay tuned to that one. Okay, for the project part, I plan to use this heater. It's an Aquel Ultra Heater 50. Now, the short background is that initially I was actually planning to use an Eheim Jaeger aquarium heater, but I actually run into severe problems with this heater and the thermostat. It kept the reading wrong. You can calibrate the thermostat, but the thermostat error was so big, so the range of calibration didn't work. And I also even got a second heater with and it showed the same problem. So I left that one and actually went to a slightly more expensive one, but there are a few benefits with this one. First, it's very slim, so I think my tank being quite small now, it's gonna fit perfectly. Secondly, it's a 2-in-1, so it also is gauging the temperature, so it's displaying the temperature. And thirdly, the benefit with this one is it's actually, according to the instruction, you can submerge the entire heater 80 centimeters, which is more than I need. That's really good, because that's going to ease up my options to fit it. And previously, maybe not specifically with this one, but previously with this type of glass covered heaters, I think in the long run, if you keep submerging these ones underwater, they typically sooner or later start leaking in, or you start seeing moist inside the glass, and that is typically the first sign that you will have a short circuit on that one, and it will soon fail on you. Okay, I will do as in the last video. I will now zoom over to a picture where I'm just illustrating where I have installed the heater in the tank. And as we look at that picture, I would like to thank you for your attention, and I hope you stay tuned to the next episode about light. I wish you a pleasant evening, and goodbye. Bye-bye.